I wanted to say a big thank you to Ariel and to the team at MPP. You guys played a massive journey in helping Black Ballad get to where it is today. So a massive thank you from myself and from everyone at Black Ballad. But yes, as I said, we started as a free blog 2014, and we transitioned to building a membership in 2017. What is Black Ballad today? Black Ballad is, our goal is to create the ultimate lifestyle experience for Black women in Britain and beyond. And we do that with our lead product, the Black Ballad membership, which is a combination of text, audio, video, events, community, lifestyle perks that come together to help Black women live their best lives. And when we first started as a membership, we were kind of romantic about this idea that, we're not going to get advertisers to fund our work. It's going to be straight from the community in terms of reader revenues. But I think what we realized over time was that actually it's best to have a blend of different revenue streams that ultimately can be complementary to helping you achieve the overall vision of the business. And as you can see from the data there, we've gone from being almost exclusively reader revenue based or membership based in revenue to actually our memberships being less than a quarter of our revenue this year. So a little bit more about me. As I said, started Black Ballad with my girlfriend, now wife, which is a good thing because obviously I'm not a Black woman, and it's super important to have the lived experience on the founding team. But I started work as a digital transformation analyst, and I really got to study how different types of media businesses were taking advantage of social, of mobile, and trying to figure out how you build a business out of all of the new opportunities that were coming. So I took a bunch of interest in, the rise of BuzzFeed, the fall of BuzzFeed, and figuring out how can we create our own space in this ecosystem. And so when I'm not spending my time obsessing over Black Ballad or like the media business in general, I spend far too much time on Twitter, in particular NBA Twitter, Black Twitter, and media Twitter, which leads me on to our next slide, which is a quote from Jared Sticker. And for me, this is one of the truest statements I've seen about memberships, and it's something that we learned really, really early on. As I said, I'm not the target market. Black Ballad is for professionally ambitious, culturally curious, and socially conscious Black women in Britain and beyond. And because I'm not the target demo, we did a bunch of research to find out, well, what does this audience really, really want from a membership? If we're going to ask people to part with their money, then we actually really need to understand what it is that they want. And even from 2017, 2016, it was clear that a membership for this audience would be more than just content. They were looking for community. They were looking for events. They were looking for perspectives that went beyond their own, but they wanted to hear it directly from people. They didn't want to have to go through a media company or intermediary. So we knew from early on that, in order to build a true membership for this community, it had to be more than just content. And so, we've always looked at how we can provide value beyond the words on the page, to give a holistic experience. I think we're missing a few slides. The slides that should come up says that membership businesses can develop more revenue opportunities by focusing on understanding their community rather than just creating content for them. Given that given that, again, I'm not the target demo, it was my job to really sort of pursue understanding as a North Star for the organization, so we can figure out how to unlock value for not just us and not just our community, but for the people that wanted to engage with them. And actually, I think media businesses are uniquely positioned, and media businesses and membership businesses in particular are uniquely positioned to intimately understand their audience, whether that's because of the money that people are putting into the business, or because they deeply believe in the cause and the community that's being served. And, you know, our job as operators of membership businesses is to understand how we can really sort of build a business, not necessarily out of the not just the reach, but also the depth of relationship that's had with that audience. And so the next slides that you should be seeing, and hopefully we'll be able to show it to you later on, is a flywheel. It's the Black Ballad flywheel. And it sort of goes from, you know, us sort of creating content, which allows us to aggregate audience, and we analyze the data. And analyzing that data helps us to sort of better understand how we can create better content, better events, better partnerships, better digital products and giveaways that don't just engage. Here we go. That don't just engage with our audience, but, you know, create experiences that are worth giving up an email address for, paying for, or sharing with other Black women. And so not only does the data that we get from analyzing these experiences help us improve the core membership, but it also gives us leverage with the organizations that want to better reach, engage, and understand this audience. And so, you know, our job is not only to engage Black women, but also figure out how we can package the data and the insight that we have on this audience to drive value for our partners as well. So, you know, flywheels look really, really pretty, and we took a bunch of time to put this one together. But what does this look like in practice? So when people buy a Black Ballad membership, we ask them to fill in an onboarding form. And the questions, there's about 10 questions, and they are as basic as what's your name, what's your email address, and they're as broad as how do you want to impact and change the world. And one of the things that came up regularly and still to this day comes up is Black women wanting to know more about, you know, Black motherhood. What does it mean to be a Black mum in the UK, in Europe, in the Western world? And, you know, over the last 5 years, we've seen sort of heightened awareness and increased conversation in our community, but also beyond that, about the fact that Black women have really poor maternal outcomes. In the UK, it was announced that Black women are 5 times more likely to die from childbirth than their white counterparts. Thankfully, that's gone down to 4 times more likely, but actually it also made us ask the question, well, what else do we not know about Black women and their maternal outcomes? And so we pitched, in 2019, we pitched to MPP for us to do a project driven by content, community, and data to help us explore, well, what else do we not know? And so from there, we put together a survey. It was ridiculously long. It was 170 questions, but it really allowed us to get into the granularity of Black women's experiences, you know, getting pregnant, whilst actually being pregnant, postpartum, and get into the different nuances amongst different geographies and different sort of additional conditions. So when we created the 170 question survey, we distributed it amongst our audience, all organic. So across our social and across our email list, we were able to get 2,600 Black women to respond to us or to fill in the survey, providing 150,000 data points. And with that, really giving us the tools to dig in and create a bunch of different experiences for Black women. And here are some of the most notable. So based on the data collected from the survey, we were able to produce 30 different articles. And we were able to create our first podcast series, which was initially in-house, but got picked up by Acast, who helped us to distribute and monetize it. We also did a takeover with Huffington Post, which was great from an awareness standpoint, not just for Black Ballad, but in terms of putting those data points on the pedestal that they deserved. Because one of the things we actually gleaned from the survey was that 86% of Black women feel that mainstream media and brands misrepresent or don't understand the nuances around Black motherhood. And so it was super important for us to give that data a platform. The data also allowed us to have conversations with the NHS, the National Health Service, both from a marketing standpoint, but also to consult the NHS on how they can better treat Black mums throughout their maternal care. And also, and I think most importantly in terms of this conversation, on top of the advertising opportunities and the consulting opportunities, this data project and this sort of drive to understand our audience in a super granular way has opened up two very lucrative opportunities for us. If you can go back to the previous slide really quickly, please. The first is group subscription. So Black Ballad, as of September, will be having its first group subscription with a leading university in the UK. I'd love to announce it here. I can't, unfortunately, but that's really exciting for us because it shows that actually Black Ballad content is not just for Black women, you know, from a lifestyle standpoint, but can be used more broadly in an academic perspective. And also the data and the project has put us in position to win our first six-figure advertising deal, which is great too. And so when we look at the overall impact of the project, the numbers go a bit beyond, or some of these numbers have grown a little bit since we put this together, but it was focusing on Black motherhood in this way allowed us to grow our memberships. It helped us to convert people from, you know, just looking at Black Ballad on social media to actually being freemium users. So taking part, providing an email address and reading their free reads per month. And actually from a monetary standpoint as well, the increase in memberships, the advertising revenue, the consulting, and the consulting have also come together to create a project that's ROI positive. And, you know, it's not that there are a bunch of ways to build understanding around your audience or for your audience. And, you know, we're just going to go through a couple. So obviously one being surveys, and they don't always have to be as extensive as 170 questions. You know, we do surveys on our social media all the time through Instagram polls and things of that nature. But when you're putting these surveys together, especially the larger ones, it's really important to center the community or audience in the framing. So when we did the motherhood survey and data project, the framing wasn't about help Black Ballad get this data. It was about helping us collectively understand the things that we don't know about Black motherhood. And sort of that tweak and shift in language really helped convert people from just sort of engaging with us on social to actively engaging with us on the survey. Also, it's really important to build trust, not just with the audience, but on that specific topic before you get to your sort of big data asks. And you can do that through content, through events, through other engagement activities. And then it's also being transparent around how you're going to use that data. Obviously, you're not attempting to use it for nefarious means, but it's better to be on the front foot in terms of articulating these are the things that we want to do. And if the case is, hey, we just want to make your membership better and your experience better by being a part of this platform, then that's great too, because people want to be served, super duper served. So just being transparent with how you plan on using the data is really important as well. You can also build understanding through observation. So we as a team and as an organization spend a bunch of time on social media, engaging with our audience and in our private community Slack channel for our premium members. And an interesting thing that came up every now and again was this fact that the rising cost of plantain, a food that's eaten commonly in Afro-Caribbean communities. The price was going up. It used to be free for £1 5 years ago, and now we're seeing one for £1. We're seeing this ridiculous offering on Amazon. But it made us say, well, actually, is there a story here? Is there something we can create here for Black women that they're not going to get anywhere else? And so we created a piece of content around why is the price of plantain increasing. If you can go to the next slide, please. And it allowed us to tackle things like food gentrification, politics, climate change, and so actually using plantain as like the wedge or the hook, we were able to explore all of these different topics, which were just as equally interesting to our audience, but through a vector that we knew no other publication was going to do. And finally, if we go to the next slide. And so ways of or places where you can sort of observe your audience. As I said, socials. If you've got private member spaces where your community exists, that's a really great place because you can go sort of back and forth with your audience to sort of get deeper into any insights you may have gleaned. But also, when you have your physical events, actively sort of just speaking to your community, getting a sense of why they're there, where they come from, what's important to them, what the platform or what your business or membership products can be doing better to serve, are all sort of great questions to ask whilst you have your community face-to-face with you. And finally, your engagement data is a really good place to understand exactly what your audience wants and needs. We at Black Ballad capture data across these 5 buckets, and they really help to focus the data that we capture when it comes to our editorial content and how it performs. And it's very interesting the difference between the sort of stated preference and the preference that audiences give when they do things like fill in surveys or onboarding forms, and actually their actual preference when you use their behavior as a way to measure what people like. The gaps are always super interesting and often tell you interesting nuggets about your audience, how they want to perceive, or even how they think, but like not necessarily realize how they think. And so, if I were to sort of closing this presentation, I will sort of close on this quote, which I think for me has been foundational in us building our membership business, not just from a content perspective, but across the board. Understanding not content is the foundational asset for any audience or community-driven company, because the more understanding you have, the greater your ability to build a business around the community and those that are interested in them. But those are just my thoughts, and those are just the experiences that we've had at Black Ballad. And I would love to sort of hear the experiences of others and any questions that any of you may have.
Thanks, Bola. Thanks so much. We have already a couple of questions in the Q&A, but if you have more questions for Bola, just put them in. There is a question from Jay, and you sort of answer, because Jay asked about a flywheel. To what degree are Black Ballad members aware that you are using data derived from them for leverage with brands? What kind of permission do you feel you have to have from them? I know you said you're really being transparent, but do you tell them anything specifically in this sense?
So when we did our first survey, the Motherhood survey, we were transparent in an informal sense, i.e., we told our community that we wanted to use this data to make the membership better through content, events, and other things. But we also wanted to try and use this data to hold institutions to account, and whether that's our governments, our health services, but also the brands that serve them on a day-to-day basis. We were quite clear that we want this data to not just sit in our sort of data rooms over wherever data lives, but we wanted the data to drive action. And so we were quite transparent with them in an informal sense, in terms of that we stated that, but this was still sort of, I want to say it was maybe just before sort of GDPR and things of that nature. And so since then we've evolved that even further, and when we capture this sort of granular in-depth data, there's now a sort of like a permissions page before you even get to the survey that sort of clearly states what we want to use the data for and things of that nature. But as I said, I think it's actually useful to be transparent in terms of how you're going to use that data. The projects that we are working, that we hope to close, the six-figure advertising deal, Black Ballad data is at the heart of that particular project, and actually we're going to be using interviews with respondents from the survey. We're going back into the data, getting their phone numbers and email addresses, contacting them, doing follow-up interviews that can be used specifically for those projects. And so we think that it is not just like beneficial, but actually it's kind of vital to be as transparent as possible, and that's something we always strive to do.
There is a question by Jackie that I wanted to combine actually with a question I had. 170 questions in a survey and 2,600 respondents. Like, wow. That's an incredible uptake. And Jackie asks, how often do you survey your audience to keep tabs on how their needs are changing? And to which I add, is there too many surveys at some point? Where is that threshold?
So I'll take the second question first. Can you do too many surveys, and where's that threshold? That's really a conversation between you and your audience, and you don't really know until you sort of try and push the envelope and see how response rates and quality data sort of changes and fluctuates over time. For us, when people buy a Black Ballad membership, they do an onboarding form, and then sort of every 6 months we have started to do sort of like a state, not a state of the union, but a state of the Black Ballad audience, to get their perspective on Black Ballad membership, but then also get their perspective on other aspects of society and things that are on their mind. And then on top of that, we attempt to do these sort of more editorially driven, topic driven, deep dive surveys. So I wouldn't say we survey our audience a lot. If anything, we're probably going to up the ante over the next few months. And so, I'm actually really excited about actually how much can we embed our audience's perspectives through data into our reporting, into the pitches that we make to brands and advertisers, and across the Black Ballad business.
I know we're going a bit over time, but I'm going to sneak in 2 more questions. One is, what is the best way to engage with your audience in members-only channels, like Slack in your case?
So we use, from a tech tools perspective, we use Slack. I know some people, use Geneva, they use Circle. I would actually say that engaging in a sort of members only platform is one of the areas where we've been weakest in as a business. We put a bunch of effort into growing the audience and growing the membership and building out our sort of data backend. The thing I wish we did more of was have regular sort of conversations in Slack. But where we've had the most success is where we have used topics that are sort of going on in the zeitgeist that we know are pertinent to our community, and just throwing in a news article, whether it's our own or someone else's, and using that as the as the basis for topic and conversation. And sometimes that's us putting those topics in, and sometimes it's the community putting those topics in. But we've seen that's been super duper useful. And oftentimes there are, sort of trickle down conversations that take place off the back of those.
Very last one from Patricia. When you launch and in building your community, were there any surprises that you can share? So something that you wish you had known before and you know now?
Things that so when we transitioned from a free product to a membership, we actually did this via a crowdfund that we hosted on our own website. And we were able to get just over 300 members to buy a membership sort in a pre-sale sort of fashion. So no one really knew what the membership would actually going to look like. We've done our surveys and we phrased our marketing copy to take that into account, but no one actually knew what that was going to look like. And we started to model out, well, we got 300 from here. If we can sort of build out referrals, and if we can build out this product and that product, this is the growth rate. Actually, what we found is over the sort of 18 months, 70% of the people that bought during the crowdfund period, pre-launch, they churned out. So they used the membership that they bought in the pre-sale, and then after that, they didn't come back. And that was a massive sort of lesson for us, because we just sort of assumed that they would be there. We didn't really know much about sort of like membership churn, what it takes to sort of keep people paying for their membership. I think when we saw sort of that churn begin to happen, it sort of helped us really sort of like get to grips with, actually, do you know what? We don't know this audience as well as we do. We really need to spend time, effort, and resource into understanding our audience every day at scale as much as possible.
Thank you. Sorry, Gabor, I know there is one more question, but we're running out of time. Maybe you can post it into the chat and Bola can answer it from the chat. Bola, thank you so much for joining, and back to Ariel.
Thank you for having me.